Welcome to Two Woke Bonnets, a podcast where we revisit the classic TV shows of our Gen X childhoods and see how well they hold up today. With your hosts, Carol and Joey.
Hello and welcome to the Prairie. This is Two Woke Bonnets. I'm Carol.
I'm Joey.
And we watch Little House on the Prairie and look at it through 2025 eyes to see if it still has lessons to tell us or teach us or make us laugh.
Yes.
So we are on the last episode of season 1.
Whee!
Woo! It has been a season, but we're on Founders Day, the last season of episode 1, episode 24 or 22, or 23, depending on how you're counting the episodes.
24 or 25.
Oh, 24 or 25, depending on how you're counting the episodes. Either way, it's the last episode of the season, and next season we won't have that issue because they didn't screw up the numbering of the pilot.
With the movie. Yeah.
So Founders Day, they brought in a big name, somewhat of a big name guest star for this episode.
Yes.
Are you gonna have a word?
I personally have a crush on the guest star, so.
Oh.
But I'll tell you why later. So anyway.
Okay, so it's Founders Day in Walnut Grove. It's like their big celebration. They have competitions galore, 3-legged races and pie contests and the girls and Ma are so excited to sign up for everything. And Pa's like, I'm just going to spectate this year because I don't want to compete. And then he goes to work and he has to work with a new dude.
Who rides him pretty hard.
Yeah, rides him really hard. So he is we're to assume this dude is new in town, correct?
Well, no, because he won all these Bull of the Woods competitions. So, you know.
Is he like this was the thing that confused me for the entire episode. And this is another one of those episodes I don't watch all that often because to me it's kind of a throwaway.
It's a fun episode. I will say this. As a viewer, I enjoyed watching this episode, but that's because there was a lot of physical activity in this. Yeah, and I think you see glimpses of the actors actually enjoying themselves, not necessarily in character. It's just them being like, oh crap, now I've got to run this 3-legged race.
I got to run a 3-legged race.
I have to like take
on camera
this hoop and make it go around. Like it just was really, I thought it was kind of one of these things where it's like I could totally see them saying, we're just going to make this like, it's like that last day in elementary school
episode.
It's that field day thing. Yeah, it's like the picnic episode earlier on. So
but
so it was that. But yeah, so they're all going to be competitive. So Jim Tyler is the character, and supposedly he was the one that helped make Hanson's as successful as it was.
Because he was logging.
But he was doing all the logging. But I think he's had to slow down. So now he's actually, so he always won all these logging competitions. And now he's competing for this Founders Day competition because he can't do the logging by himself anymore. Now he has to bring somebody else along. And it ends up being Studley Charles. And so he immediately feels threatened by him.
But Charles doesn't know him.
No.
So again, we're given a townsperson who's supposedly established that he's won these competitions, and Hanson relies on him for lumber. But nobody's ever met him before because Charles.
So the thought process is kind of like this is Charles's first Founders Day, although this Founders Day has been going on and on forever.
Yeah. So again, the timeline of this season is just all sorts of loopy.
Listen, we're really living in a Doctor Who world. The timeline is just wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey ball of stuff. Yes.
I think Walnut Grove is in a black hole, a time warp black hole or something.
And can we go back to like the very, very beginning of the episode when they're getting ready to go to there and Ma's trying to figure out which of the two pies she's going to get? We have a timey-wimey moment really right there. So first of all, that everybody's dressed up in the Sunday dresses that Mom
Yeah.
made. And they come out and Half Pint is rolling her hoop, which is, the wagon wheel, the barrel hoop. She's wheeling it. She's trying to practice in the yard, and she wheels it into the barn where Pa is sharpening his two axes for the axe throw because he feels where he wasn't going to compete. Jim Tyler makes him want to compete now.
Because Jim, he was being very
Manhood,
condescending to him while they were logging.
farmer versus logger, the whole, city girls, country girls kind of scenario, but different. It's like you live in the woods, I cut the woods, man. So, yeah. So it's that whole situation. But Laura wheels it in and he said, "Oh, you're practicing Half Pint?" He says, "Yeah, I already helped Ma load the wagon." Then Ma comes out and asks him which of the two pies, and he says, "Take them both. Whichever one you don't put in the contest, we'll eat for lunch." And then she's like, "Okay, I'll do that." And she goes away, and he turns to Laura and says, "Help your Ma load the wagon." She literally 2 sentences ago just said she helped Ma load the wagon, and you said, "Good girl." So either were you, and she's like, "Okay, Pa."
Because you can't contradict Charles Ingalls even when he's speaking nonsense. But
yeah,
so
we have a couple of these timey-wimey moments, and I'll hit a couple more. So anyway, yes.
It just seems like scenes are like the script was a slightly out of order here, but whatever. It's their first Founders Day or whatever, and suddenly the town has like 100 million people.
Yes.
Because these are some pretty big crowds for Founders Day, and we never see these people anywhere else. They sure as hell aren't in
Founders
church.
Day, which is run by
I think it's the whole
Hanson,
the whole area.
Yeah, and Hanson was the one. Yeah, because they kept on saying of the county, not of the
not
town.
of Walnut Grove. It was of the county, and Hanson is the one that established Walnut Grove, which
So he makes all the donations for all the prizes, not the Olsons like we did with the church. Bell. So again,
so here it's Hanson, and he has pledged $50 and a gold watch, or just a watch,
just for the logging thing. Everything else is just ribbons.
Everything else is just ribbons. But for the logging competition, there is a monetary and a watch prize,
which actually makes sense because he is the lumber guy.
Yeah.
So he would want to find out who the best lumber guys are so that he could encourage them to sell their lumber.
All this wood's going to go into his lumber mill anyway, so it's a win-win situation. He just gets some free chopping from people.
Yeah. So anyway, so we start off, and the first competition is the jump rope.
We see is we start the jump rope. No, it's the pie competition. I think Reverend Alden does the pies.
The pie
first.
Competition was on the left, and the jump roping was on the right, or vice versa.
Yeah, so it's going on at the same time. But the jump rope is down to Mary and Willie. And it's just how long can you jump rope? So it's just until someone drops.
Yeah. And it's 11 minutes. They go 11 minutes.
Yeah, according to Doc Baker, they've been going on 11 minutes.
Thank God the vet was there. The vet that treats people. Because who else to better time things? Because he has a pocket watch.
Eventually, Mary comes down wrong on her ankle, and Willie wins.
It's literally all of a sudden when it's down just to the two of them, suddenly a rock appears in the circle that was not there.
Yeah.
And nobody says to her, "Mary, there's a rock underneath you. Jump to the left or jump to the right." Yeah. They just sit there and watch her.
This is kind of my problem with this episode, is like, even when the Ingalls lose, there's got to be a reason for them losing. It can't just be Willie jump ropes longer or hops longer or has more energy than Mary. There has to be something that makes Mary, lose the competition.
And I also didn't understand why Mary and Laura both didn't jump rope. Like,
Yeah.
could you only put
'Cause
one person per family in the
I
competition?
didn't, that seemed, that, I don't know. It
And
seemed,
why did Nellie not jump rope? Because we definitely have seen Nellie jump rope in previous episodes. Why was it only Willie? And why wasn't Harriet saying, no, boys can't do the jump roping?
boys can't jump rope. That's a girl's thing to do.
So
We
that
get
was
lots of,
confusing to me. I didn't
yeah,
remember that
I
from my
just assume
childhood.
that, you know what? Willie is a problem child. I'm sure Mrs. Olson threw jump ropes at him at a very young age and said, just go jump until you drop. And that's why he can go 12 minutes jumping
I
rope.
will say this. I had a nephew who I love very much, but when he was born, he was a first child, and his mom was so concerned about making sure he was always fed. He became a little like round baby where even the bottoms of his feet were round.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
just because he was so like full of food all the time because it was like you have, that's what I remember. But I will tell you this, that boy would jump in place like 20 minutes in a row, and I kid you not. Like it was, and I used to say I felt like it was because he was trying to flatten out the bottom of his feet, but he would just jump, 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 jump. So that actually made sense to
But
me,
hey,
but I was surprised that because he was the only boy of all the
yeah,
girls. Like
he
I
was the only
didn't
boy
see
there and
another
he ended up
boy
winning.
jumping. So
But
anyway,
hey, autism is a new thing. Autism doesn't exist, in olden times,
of
right?
course,
Right?
of
Right.
course. But anyway, so
Anyway,
he ends up winning that. So he's the
yeah,
first one of the Olsons to win a prize.
right. Then we get the pie competition, where it's down to 3 pies, and Reverend Alden chooses not Mrs. Ingalls and not Mrs. Olson. He chooses, um, I think Amanda Wheeler. What is that her name? Mrs. Wheeler?
Mrs. Grandy,
Mrs. Grandy. Okay.
played by Georgia Schmidt. So
I think doesn't even have a line. She just smiles weakly
yeah,
as
I
Reverend
think
Alden
the
tastes her pie.
interesting thing was that um, you do see Melinda Foster in this episode. She's the one standing between.
She
Um,
is townswoman we see many a time.
yeah,
So,
and well, and then in Father Murphy, she actually has like a role.
yeah.
But I felt bad for her because they put her in between as like this little cluster because Carolyn and Harriet wouldn't naturally be standing side by side. So they're putting, Melinda Foster
They
in the
have to have
middle.
somebody between them.
Yeah, but then like Carolyn was so desperate to get her head in the shot that her like her bonnet was like pushing into
Right in her
Melinda's face.
face.
And Melinda, the actress, is just sitting there trying to smile. But they do crack a joke about the fact that, they had been taunting each other about the fact that their recipes were handed down generation to generation. And this old woman won, so it was generation to generation to generation.
Generation to generation.
So
It was
anyway, so neither one of them wins, so they don't have the satisfaction of beating each other, which comes up
right.
later.
And then we have the picnic, or we have Charles's first heat. He wins his first heat, and then Jim Tyler. Oh, is it after
No,
the picnic?
tug of war,
Oh, the tug of war,
which
which
is
is
another timey-wimey thing. So they
yeah.
do the picnic, or they do
They
the
do the
tug of
tug of
war,
war,
and
which
Mr.
Nels's
Olson is
team
saying,
loses.
yeah, well, because Laura keeps running up there and going, my pa's gonna win. And and this poor Melissa Gilbert runs into this fence every single time she runs up to them. That was one of the things that made me laugh. They're like, by the way, this was not directed by Michael Landon or Victor French, neither one of them. This was
Yeah,
by William Claxton. It was a totally different dude, so that the actors could just be part of this event.
right. Although you don't see Mr. Edwards in this episode at all.
No, he was probably, fishing because what
I
does he
think they
care?
wanted to leave space for Forrest Whitaker because
Yeah,
that's the guest star's name, right?
yeah, Forrest Tucker.
Forrest Tucker. Forrest
Yeah.
Whitaker is a singer. Anyway,
Yes.
uh, anyway,
Yeah,
Forrest
Mr.
Whitaker's a
Edwards
different
would have
actor.
been too big a
Different actor.
personality against Forrest Tucker.
Yeah,
So,
Forrest Tucker. So I think
so
they
they do
just
the tug of war.
there would have been two crotchety old men, and I think that wouldn't have worked. So
So Mr. Olson's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And he walks by and one side is missing a guy. They needed a sixth man. And so they tell Mr. Olson that he needs to do it after his wife has been like, well, you need to show them how to win, darling, you know?
Nels,
And so
come
he
on,
says
look at
he's going to
Nels.
do
Look at
it. So
Nels,
he
Harriet.
takes, and he's got a three-piece suit on. So he takes off his vest and his jacket, and they put him in the front.
Yeah. And it's just to throw him
Charles. Yeah. And there's a pit of mud in between them. And so now he's sitting there in his spats and his suspenders and his white shirt and his striped pants. And he's on the one side and they're on the other. Now, the fun thing about this is it is 6 people on each side. So it is not pitting Charles against Nels.
It's pitting
two teams.
It's 2 teams, but let's face it, we knew who was going to win this one.
Did we though? Because he didn't. Because they pull on it. And then Charles pulls Nels in, but they don't pull the little tag across the line because they're too busy laughing at him being in the mud.
Yeah.
And so the 5 guys that are left grab the line and pull Charles in, and they win because they pulled the little white thing.
So technically, Nels won this.
Yes, he won it, and he got the badge, and they handed it to Charles, and Charles pinned it on.
I missed this. I must have just nodded off or something during this.
This was one of my favorite parts of the scene. I'm sorry you missed it. You have to go back because you can see, and it makes sense from all the episodes we watch, Charles and Nels are friends.
Yeah, Charles and Nels.
Despite what happens with their wives, their kids, they have genuine affection for each other. And this was never a competition like the later ones.
Yeah. And it's not like their daughters competing against each other or Willie and Mary competing against each other. Because those are like,
that's rivalries.
There's rivalries. They're never there's no rivalry between Nels and Charles. It's just
so the 2 of them are sitting in the muds, laughing their butts off, and Charles pins the medal onto Nels. Now, here's the timey-wimey part. We go to the next competition.
They're all clean.
And they give 15-minute breaks between the competition. They're as clean as a whistle. Now, Nels is in a totally different suit, so they don't put him back in the same suit.
Yeah, and his home is like right there.
Right
Nels'
there.
home is right there.
So that makes
Charles,
sense to me.
However,
did he have an extra set of clothes just in there? Like that? I didn't.
Charles was one where he was not going to compete. He was planning on just.
Well, he knew he was going to compete by the time he got there because of the.
But I don't think he would have brought a change of clothes.
No, so that was definitely another little timey-wimey moment.
Yeah.
So then we do the little hoops, which, let's be clear, neither Allison Ingram or Melissa Gilbert have any skills.
I have no idea. They have no idea what they're doing with these damn things.
And Melissa and Laura keeps on grabbing the hoop because it's going like she cuts across grass. She does all this stuff, and it ends up that Nellie wins. And of course, Laura immediately says she bumped my hoop.
Look, neither one of you were abiding by hoop rules, whatever the heck hoop rules.
Like whatever the rules were, they were out the window. By the way, the thing that this
was extreme hoop racing. And there was off-road hoop racing. This was a mess of a race, and frankly, nobody should have gotten a ribbon. But of course,
right, because like the when they were doing the jump rope, once you tripped on the rope, you were out. And these kids were like dumping the hoops over and all that stuff. And I would have said, if you lose control of your hoop, you're out.
You're out.
But they didn't do that. Also hilarious that they had this huge banner that said that this was the starting and finishing line, and the only start and finish that you saw happen there was the pony racing.
Yeah.
Everything else, nothing started and finished there. So that was hilarious.
I'm not sure. There apparently was not a Founders Day marathon or anything like that. It was just
Yeah.
But
So
so
now,
Laura
so
loses
now,
the hoop race,
yeah,
but of
Nellie
course
wins. So now Willie's
she
1-1, Nellie's
Ellie's
1-1,
1-1 and Nels is
Nels has
1-1.
1-1.
And
And
we get to the
and
three-legged race, and Mary can't compete because she has hurt her ankle too much jumping rope.
so Laura again runs up and runs into the fence post because everybody's taking the 15-minute
Yep.
rest and says, My ma's gonna race with me and we're gonna win. And Harriet takes off of her marabou feathered hat. And because Nels goads her and says, Don't you want to show the children how to win something? And
And yeah, and they decide to do the three-legged race.
to their credit, so they do the three-legged race. There's two moms, and the rest are all like sisters or whatever. The thing that was I loved about this race was that Laura and Caroline fall. Caroline's hat, bonnet, swings all the way around the front. And so it's almost blocking her view. I remember doing three-legged races as a kid, and the way that you would win is you would practice with your partner beforehand and go like 1, 2, and the 2 was
1, 2, 1,
the
2.
middle leg, and you would do that. But they
Also,
didn't practice.
It helps if you're the same height. It really
Also,
helps if you're the same height.
well, I remember one of the people that I was doing with just grabbed the back of my jeans and kind of lifted me when it was the middle leg, so whatever.
Because having an adult and a child, they're never going to win this race against two kids because,
But the kids fell all over themselves, and
well, because they were supposed to, because Ma and
right.
Laura had to win this one. Come on.
But Harriet and Nellie never fell. They just weren't going very fast.
Yeah.
They were going slow and steady wins the race. But, I think a little bit of it was that Harriet was like trying to keep her decorum while racing. Because, like, lady, you just got to commit to the
You just
bit
got to
at
go
this
for
point.
it. You got to Princess Diana and just run.
And again,
so, yeah,
my favorite part of this race was not that they won, because that was kind of predictable. This was going to be Laura and Carolyn's redemption moment. It's the fact that these two actors genuinely look like they were having a blast.
Yeah, this looked like a fun day out for everybody. It looked like they really just had a cast picnic and did some games and filmed it and just had fun with it.
And I thought that was hilarious. So Laura and Caroline end up winning. Yay.
And then we get down to the final log split, and it's between Jim and Charles, and they're doing a break. And then Jim Tyler's wife comes up to Charles and basically guilt trips him into throwing. Although he doesn't technically throw the race, I will say this. He just uses a lesser axe.
Right. The thing that doesn't make sense, well, there's a couple things, of course. There's always some, but
there's always something.
Pa would not say, don't bother looking for my wedding stone. Because that's a tool that you need.
Yes.
So yes, I understand that to forward the plot, she needed to get him by himself without her husband seeing.
Yes.
And I get that. But it should have said, I'll go up to the barn. If you can find it, that would be great, or something like that. But whatever.
Something. Yeah. And
he doesn't say anything, but of course, like Laura notices at the end. It's the gift of the Magi, right?
He just uses his axe. Rather, he had borrowed an axe, a much nicer axe.
Yes.
To do this, that was helping him chop, because his axe is rather large and unwieldy. But all he did, rather than throw the race and go slower, he just used an inferior axe.
Right.
And Jim wins and gets to watch in the ribbon, and all is right with the world. And he made an old bull of the woods happy. And this apparently is going to give him the reason to keep on going or whatever, because his wife is like, he's tired. He just wants to watch to look back on all the glory days. I'm like, well.
And him winning turned Charles from being the enemy into being somebody he could work with.
Yeah. Which, we're never going to see him again. So we never see Jim Tyler again. He's one of the disappeared. So he's never going to work with Charles again.
Yeah. So
we do have disappearing townfolk because these two are supposedly been here a while and they never are seen again.
But Laura knows what her dad did and she calls him on it and he tells her it's sometimes it's not about, and it's the message. This is definitely your 1970s woke moment. Because throughout the whole thing, Pa has been very clear. It's just about participating and doing what's in.
And also in his little act switch, it's more. It was. I was evening the playing field a little bit.
An old man versus an old axe.
Yeah. I was evening the playing field. So that's also a woke moment for 1974, frankly. It's going to be a woke moment for 2025. But
yeah. We will change the bingo card to say just 2020's woke moment. So that way
2020s. So I actually got bingo on this one for I think the first time this season I got a bingo.
I was very close, but what did you pick? Which
I
card
got
did
Nellie
you
and
use?
Laura fight.
Oh, did you pick
the Hoop Race fighting?
Okay.
Because Nellie does actually, bumper move.
Right.
Nightcaps because the girls are in bed talking about Founders Day. Someone gets hurt because Mary sprains her ankle.
Yep.
O'Nell's because Harriet says O'Nell's at least once, and then Charles because Carolyn says Charles, and this was card number 2.
I had card 4. Okay. What else? Those were your bingos?
That was my bingo, and then I got a 1970s woke moment. Ma shirtless because Ma is giving him a massage. We also get Forrest Tucker shirtless because his wife is giving him a massage. 2024 unwoke moments.
Yes.
Because of just the way the condescension of Jim Tyler was just making me feel very just like, man, dude, shut up. Harriet commits a crime. Actually, I don't know. Did she commit a crime?
No.
No. Maybe I saw Harriet, so I immediately checked Harriet commits a crime because usually she just committing a crime. Townfolk disappear because this couple disappears. Harry speaks. She says Founders Day, and that's it.
And then she says, bye, Pa. She says 2 lines. Yep.
And Mom and Pa share a knowing look.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Forrest Tucker was on Gunsmoke.
Well, he was, and so was Ann Doran, who played Helen Tyler.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't check those. That didn't enter into my bingo though, so and it wouldn't have given me another bingo.
So I did not get a bingo, but I got a lot of close, like 4 or 3 in a row. So I got the Pa shirtless, the townsfolk disappearing, and the nightcaps. That was row 1. Row 2 was the 2024 unwoke moment and the O'Nells. I didn't feel like Laura got in trouble. I was so sure somebody was going to go to the outhouse during this episode, but nobody did. I was very mad.
All of this X work and saw work. If you like wood, sawing wood or axing wood, this is the episode for you.
I had all 4 of the cries. I had Laura cries, Ma cries, Nellie cries, Pa cries, but nobody cried.
Nobody cried.
No, I did not. I did not mark Nellie and Laura fight till you said it. I did do the running up and down hill because they did it with the hoop race and stuff. Someone gets hurt. I had 1970s woke moment. I had, and then guess that was on Bonanza and Carrie Speaks, but that just nothing lined up. But at least I felt excited because last time I only had the 2 plus the free space. So I felt like at least I had stuff. So let's talk about some of the guests. I'm going to leave Forrest to the end. So we had Georgia Smith. She played Mrs. Grandy. And although she was not in Gunsmoke or Bonanza, she was in a couple episodes of Highway to Heaven. So it was a pay forward moment.
Yeah.
I will say that a lot of the people, as I was, first of all, one of the things that I love when I'm going through the IMDb of the guest things is I see titles of movies and I'm like, oh my God.
I
So
gotta watch that one. I gotta watch
yeah,
that.
yeah. They're one of the ones for the last episode with all of the townspeople from Mankato. There was a movie called Kitten with a Whip,
Oh
which
yeah,
the
that's
first
Main
time
Market.
the first time I'd heard that movie title was in Will and Grace when Jack first meets Karen. So I was like, oh wow, I forgot that was actually a movie and this guy was in it. So anyway, so Georgia Smith, so really Highway to Heaven, and she didn't have a huge amount of stuff,
Yeah.
credits. Ann Doran, who played Helen Tyler, evidently when she was younger, her parents would have her be in silent movies before the talkies, but they were afraid the family would find out that they were using their child to supplement their income, and so they would change her name. So she is uncredited for a lot of her early roles, but they said that her total credits now on IMDb, it's like 380 something credits, but they said she was actually in over 500 movies and over 1,000 TV episodes in her life. She definitely did Highway to Heaven and she did Bonanza. But if people ever watched the National Velvet TV series, which I did not, she was in 58 episodes of that.
Okay.
So unlike a lot of
She
our
was
guest stars who have
yeah.
onesie twosies and never really make a thing, Helen Ann Doran, absolutely.
Had a
She was
career.
never had any big, like she was never supporting actress or main actress, like, second,
But she
first
was
or
a
second.
working actor. A lot of
She
these
was a
background characters
very,
are
very big working actor.
very much working actors.
So Forrest Tucker, who played Jim Tyler, so he was in episodes of Gunsmoke and Bonanza, absolutely. A lot of people would know him because he was in F Troop with Larry Storch, and he was well known for that. For those of us who grew up in the 70s in those weird Saturday afternoon shows, Larry Storch and Forrest Tucker went on to do a series called The Ghostbusters, where they would investigate scary towns and stuff like that with their pet gorilla, who was a guy in his gorilla suit.
It was a live action Scooby-Doo type movie.
Yeah, it was
show.
yeah. And then he would also appear on it because they would do like Larry Storch cartoon hour or whatever with them kind of introducing it. The reason why I have a huge crush on Forrest Tucker is because he's in one of my all-time favorite movies, which is Auntie Mame with Rosalind Russell. And he plays Beauregard, who's the one true love of her life. So, Auntie Mame, she's one of these like very, out there lady
Larger
in the
than life
purple hat,
characters.
kind of larger than life personalities. And they talk about her being married and people dying and all this kind of stuff. But she falls in love with Beauregard in the movie. And he is in that. And the first time he encounters her is when she's in the middle of the Depression. She's lost everything. And she gets herself a job in a retail store during the holidays. And he comes in and he wants to buy all these skates for all his nieces and nephews. And she ends up getting fired because she doesn't know what the heck she's doing. And he ends up tracking her down. And first of all, he's tall. He's big. I've got a type. He's built the same as my husband was. And, he's just got that voice. And he's like, ma'am, we just like rolling in oil down here. It just comes up out of the ground, whether we want it to or not. So he's like this millionaire in the middle of the Depression. And he marries her, but he tragically dies. Spoiler alert for a movie that's like 50, 60 years old. But he ends up dying because they go all over the world and he takes pictures of her and he's always trying to get a better shot. And so they go up on the top of the Alps and he's trying to lean back to get a better picture, and he falls off the mountain and dies. But yeah, I fell in love with him there because that was the hunky kind of leading romantic man I wanted. When I found out he was in F Troop and Ghostbusters, to me that was just a different person. I was in love with him from Auntie May. And so seeing him in this kind of role with having a wife like Ann Doran played, it made sense to me.
Yeah. He
looks like my family. He looks like my family members, my aunts, my uncles. That same build that we have, and I'm crushing hard. So, yeah. So
but now he has to watch. Again, this is another episode where I was anticipating a Laura voiceover. Yeah. Mr. Tyler passed away 2 seasons later. They buried him with his watch or whatever.
Yeah.
He would go on about the watch and the way he, the Bull of the Woods came back for one last victory. But we get nothing. It's just like, well, he won. The end. And that's literally
he won, but really Pa won because he knew he'd done a good deed.
Even the field by using a cheap axe.
We're so cynical. We need to have that 70s cynical, happy.
But come on. Come on. This was a schmaltzy episode. If you really like watching 2 men saw wood or chop wood, this is a perfect episode for you because, man, there is a lot of it.
Oh, baby. There's testosterone and estrogen everywhere.
Yeah. So, and that concludes season 1 of Little House on the Prairie. Yes. I think for our next episode, we may do a recap of season 1.
Yeah.
Just a quick rundown of who's disappeared, who reappeared, who's just gone completely, and other things. So
yeah, and as we head into episode 2, there's going to be a slight timbre change.
Oh yeah, there's going to be. This was very much establishing the town and showing that the Ingalls were our moral compass, and Pa Ingalls in particular can solve any problem thrown his way.
And seeing what works and doesn't work. Yeah. As far as the town and stuff like that. So,
but we're gonna start seeing some like season-long threads showing up now, and hopefully the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey will slow down a bit because they just keep forgetting that they had another kid in this season, and that they spent 2 episodes trying to find their middle daughter. So join us next time for a season 1 recap, and then we will move on to season 2 on 2 Woke Bonnets.
Yes, thank you. We'll see you soon. Don't forget to download your bingo card.
Download your bingo card
or to request some stamps to wokebonnets.com. TWO. All right.
Thanks for listening to 2 Woke Bonnets. To find out more and to download your bingo card, visit wokebonnets.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever fine video and audio podcasts are played.